April 17, 1943. Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The stench of mud and rotting jungle hangs heavy in the humid air. The runway, a hard-packed ribbon of coral and dirt, is a testament to the brutal fighting that secured this island. For the pilots of the 339th Fighter Squadron, 347th Fighter Group, this is home a sweltering, malarial outpost at the very tip of the American spear. They are accustomed to the daily grind of combat patrols, scrambling to intercept Japanese bombers and tangling with the nimble Zeros that infest the skies over the Solomon Islands. But today, a different kind of electricity courses through the camp. Major John W. Mitchell, the 28-year-old commanding officer of the 339th, gathers his best pilots in the cramped plywood-walled briefing room. The men, lean and sun-scorched, quiet down as he stands before them. Mitchell is not a man for theatrics. His demeanor is all business, his voice steady and direct. He holds a decoded dispatch from Admiral Halsey, the words still classified at the highest level. He doesn't read it aloud. Instead, he outlines a mission so audacious, so precise, that it borders on the suicidal. "We are going to intercept a very important officer," he states, his eyes scanning the faces of his men. The target's identity is to remain a secret, known only as the Admiral. The mission parameters are staggering. The flight path is a 1,000-mile round trip, almost entirely over open water and enemy-held territory. To maintain radio silence and avoid detection, they will have to fly at wave-top level, a grueling, nerve-wracking exercise in concentration. Navigation will be by dead reckoning, relying solely on compass, airspeed, and clock. There is no room for error. A deviation of even a few degrees would send them into the empty expanse of the Pacific, or, worse, directly into the guns of a Japanese patrol. The timing must be perfect, down to the second. They are to arrive at the intercept point, a specific spot 35 miles off the coast of Bougainvillea, exactly 09:35 a.m., just as Yamamoto's transport flight is descending toward Balale. The aircraft for this impossible task is the P-38 Lightning. Its twin booms, flanking a central cockpit nacelle, give it an otherworldly silhouette. To the Japanese, it is Dero Dero, the devil. To the pilots who fly it, it is a complex, demanding but immensely capable machine. Unlike single-engine fighters, its twin Allison V1710 engines offer the psychological comfort of redundancy, a critical factor for a long-range mission over water. More importantly, its spacious wings can carry the fuel necessary for the journey. But even the P-38's standard range is not enough. The ground crews, working with a frantic urgency, begin fitting the fighters with brand-new 310-gallon drop tanks, flown in specifically for this operation. These massive teardrop-shaped tanks give the Lightnings the legs they need, but they also make the aircraft heavy and cumbersome, a significant disadvantage if they are forced into combat early. The plan is meticulously crafted by Mitchell. He selects 18 P-38s for the mission. 16 will act as the attack or killer group, responsible for engaging the target and its escort. The remaining 2, including his own, will serve as the top cover, flying higher to spot the enemy and protect the attack flight. He handpicks the 4 pilots designated to actually shoot down the bombers: Captain Thomas G. Lanphier Jr., Lieutenant Rex T. Barber, Lieutenant Besby F. Holmes, and Lieutenant Raymond K. Hine. These men are veterans, seasoned killers who have proven their mettle against the best pilots the Japanese Empire has to offer. As they study the maps, plotting the precise course, a wide, circuitous arc to the west of the main Solomon chain to avoid Japanese spotters. The sheer audacity of the mission sinks in. They are not just going on a patrol, they are being sent to assassinate a single man, a man so important the Navy is willing to risk 18 of its best pilots and aircraft to eliminate him. The fate of the mission, and their own lives, will depend on the quiet hum of their Allison engines, the accuracy of their compasses, and the intelligence gleaned from a handful of cryptanalysts thousands of miles away. April 18, 1943, 07:25 a.m., Kukum Field, Guadalcanal. The tropical dawn is shattered by the cough, sputter, and roar of 32 Allison engines waking from their slumber. The sound echoes across the island, a mechanical chorus of impending violence. Ground crews swarm around the 18 P-38 Lightnings, making final checks, their movements illuminated by the headlamps of nearby jeeps. Inside their cockpits, the pilots run through their pre-flight checklists. The familiar litany of switches and gauges, a small comfort against the tension coiling in their guts. Each man is an island of concentration, wrapped in the smell of high-octane fuel and hydraulic fluid. Major John Mitchell watches as his formation prepares to taxi. The plan is already fraying at the edges. One of the designated killer pilots, Lieutenant Jim McClanahan, pulls his P-38 out of line, a blown tire making the heavily loaded fighter impossible to control on takeoff. Moments later, another, Lieutenant Joe Moore, signals a problem. His drop tanks are refusing to feed fuel to the engines. In the space of minutes, the primary attack flight is cut in half. Mitchell, unflustered, signals Lieutenants Besby Holmes and Raymond Hine from the cover group to move up and fill the empty slots. The mission will proceed. 16 P-38s will have to be enough. One by one, the Lightnings lumber down the runway. Weighed down with a full load of ammunition and over 1,000 gallons of fuel, they feel sluggish, reluctant to leave the Earth. They claw for every foot of altitude, clearing the palm trees at the end of the runway with what feels like inches to spare. Once airborne, they form up and turn west, hugging the coastline of the Russell Islands before venturing out over the vast empty expanse of the Solomon Sea. Mitchell leads them down to the deck, a mere 50 feet above the waves, a dizzying, hypnotic altitude. They are now committed. For the next 2 hours, there will be nothing but the drone of their engines and the endless blue of the Pacific. You are inside the cockpit with Lieutenant Rex Barber. The sun glares off the water, a shimmering, blinding sheet of light that forces you to squint. Salt spray flecks the canopy, the P-38 bucks and shudders in the dense, humid air, demanding constant, minute corrections of the controls. Your world is reduced to the instrument panel and the shape of the P-38 in front of you. The Navy compass, specially fitted for this mission, is your only guide. There is no chatter, no radio communication of any kind. The silence is absolute, broken only by the steady, deafening roar of the engines just behind your shoulders. Your mind drifts. You think about the briefing, the impossible timing, the single-minded focus on a target you know only as the Admiral. You count sharks in the water below, anything to break the monotony, to keep the creeping tendrils of fear at bay. This is the longest fighter intercept mission ever attempted. Over 400 miles of open water, flying a circuitous route to avoid enemy eyes. Every man in the formation is a solitary universe of doubt and determination. Has the intelligence been right? Will Yamamoto be on time? Have they already been spotted? What if the Zeros are waiting for them? 2 hours feels like an eternity. Sweat soaks through your flight suit. Your muscles ache from the strain of holding the aircraft steady. Then, through the haze on the horizon, a dark shape begins to resolve itself. Land, the coast of Bougainville. Mitchell's dead reckoning navigation has been flawless. It is 0934. They are 1 minute early. The long silence is over. Mitchell's voice crackles over the radio for the first time, crisp and clear. Top cover, climb to 20,000. Attack flight, climb to 10,000. As the Lightnings begin to ascend, every pilot scans the sky, eyes straining to see through the light haze, searching for the devil they have flown so far to meet. The P-38s are rockets now, their superchargers screaming as they claw their way up through the thin tropical air. The world outside the canopy transforms from a blur of blue-green water to a vast, hazy dome of sky. Every pilot's head is on a swivel, their neck muscles straining, eyes sweeping every quadrant. They know the enemy is here. They can feel it. The intelligence has been perfect so far, but this is the final brutal test. 2 minutes pass. To the men in the cockpits, it is a lifetime. Had they missed them? Had the Admiral's flight been delayed? The seed of doubt, so long suppressed during the silent flight, begins to sprout. Then, from the top cover flight, a voice cuts through the static. It's Lieutenant Doug Canning. Bogies, 10 o'clock high. There they are, exactly where they were supposed to be, exactly when they were supposed to be there. 2 Mitsubishi G4M Betty bombers, their cigar-shaped fuselages painted in a mottled green camouflage, flying in a tight V formation at 14,500 feet. Above and behind them, 6 smaller aircraft, the dreaded A6M-0s, weave a protective escort pattern at 6,500 feet. For a fleeting second, the American pilots stare at the sight, a textbook aerial formation floating serenely against the backdrop of Bougainville's dense green jungle. The target is real, the trap is set. John Mitchell's voice, cold as ice, comes over the radio. Jettison tanks. Jettison tanks. All units, engage. Across the formation, 16 pilots hit the release switches. With a heavy clunk and a jolt, the massive drop tanks fall away, tumbling end over end toward the sea below. The Lightnings, suddenly shed of thousands of pounds of fuel and drag, feel alive, instantly transforming from long-range cruisers into lethal interceptors. They are lean, hungry, and built for one purpose: to kill. The Japanese pilots see them at the same moment. The sight of 16 twin-boomed American fighters appearing as if from nowhere, climbing at a ferocious rate, is a heart-stopping shock. Their perfect V formation shatters in an instant. The Zero escorts, renowned for their incredible agility, don't hesitate. They jettison their own external tanks and snap roll into a diving attack, their red meatball insignias flashing in the sun as they plummet towards the ascending Americans. Their sole mission is to protect the two bombers, to throw themselves in the path of the attackers, no matter the cost. Down in the attack flight, the 4 designated killer pilots react. Captain Tom Lanphier and his wingman, Lieutenant Rex Barber, are the first to respond. Lanphier banks his P-38 hard to the right, pulling a gut-wrenching turn to intercept the Zeros that are now diving on them. Barber, however, keeps his eyes locked on the primary objective. He sees the 2 Betty bombers make a fatal mistake. Instead of turning towards the cover of the jungle, they begin a steep, diving turn out to sea, hoping to escape at wave-top level. It is the opening Barber has been waiting for. He shoves his throttles forward and rolls his Lightning into a sharp turn, pulling inside the bomber's turn, his P-38's superior speed allowing him to cut off the angle. The sky, which seconds before had been empty and silent, erupts into a 3-dimensional dogfight. The air is filled with the shriek of engines at full power and the staccato hammering of machine guns and cannons. Tracers, bright and deadly, stitch lines across the sky. The orderly plan has dissolved into a chaotic melee. But for Rex Barber, the chaos fades away. His world narrows to the Betty bomber growing rapidly in his gun sight. It is Yamamoto's plane. He knows it. The bomber's rear gunner begins to fire, the green tracers floating lazily past Barber's canopy. He ignores them. His thumb hovers over the firing button on his control yoke. He is closing the distance, his 4 50 caliber machine guns and single 20mm cannon ready to tear the enemy aircraft from the sky. Time seems to warp in the crucible of aerial combat. For Lieutenant Rex Barber, the seconds stretch into an eternity. His P-38 shudders as he brings the Betty bomber into the center of his illuminated gunsight reticle. He is now perilously close, flying through the bomber's prop wash, his aircraft bucking like a wild horse. He can see the Japanese gunner in the tail blister, frantically traversing his weapon. Barber ignores him. His focus is absolute, a predator's single-minded intensity. His thumb presses the red firing button. The nose of the Lightning erupts in a torrent of fire and smoke. 4 50 caliber machine guns and a 20mm cannon unleash a concentrated stream of destruction. The sound is a deafening roar that vibrates through Barber's entire body. He watches his tracers walk directly into the Betty's right engine and wing root. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, small bright flashes appear all over the wing as the explosive cannon shells find their mark. A thin trail of white vapor instantly blossoms into a thick, oily black plume of smoke. The engine housing disintegrates, and a brilliant orange tongue of flame licks out, wrapping around the wing. Barber keeps the trigger depressed, raking his fire across the fuselage and into the left engine. Large chunks of the bomber's aluminum skin peel away, cartwheeling into the slipstream. The Betty, mortally wounded, lurches violently. Its nose drops and it begins a sickening, uncontrolled roll to the left, away from Barber's line of fire. It is clearly out of control, a dead machine. The bomber's descent becomes steeper. a fiery comet arcing towards the impenetrable green canopy of the Bougainville jungle below. From inside the crippled aircraft, there is no escape. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the man who had brought war to America's doorstep, is now just a passenger on a one-way trip to oblivion. Simultaneously, the second Betty bomber, carrying Yamamoto's chief of staff, Vice Admiral Matome Ugaki, is also making a desperate dive for the waves. Lieutenants Besby Holmes and Raymond Hine are on it in a flash. Holmes comes in from the side, his guns blazing, but his angle is poor and his shots stitch across the water. He overshoots the target. As he pulls up, he sees the bomber is now trailing smoke and losing altitude, hit by fire from his wingman, Hine. The damaged Betty gets so low to the water that one of its wingtips catches a wave. The aircraft cartwheels, exploding in a massive fireball of fuel and seawater. Above them, the sky is a chaotic furball. Captain Tom Lanphier, having broken off to engage the escorts, finds himself in a turning dogfight with a Zero. He claims a victory, watching a Japanese fighter trail smoke as it falls away. But the Zeros are persistent, buzzing around the larger, less maneuverable American fighters. Lieutenant Raymond Hine, after helping to destroy the second bomber, is last seen locked in a deadly chase with a Zero. His plane vanishes from sight. The elation of the successful intercept is instantly tempered by the brutal reality of combat. The mission is accomplished, but the price is not yet paid in full. Major Mitchell's voice cuts through the chaos, ordering the scattered P-38s to reform. "Home, boys. Get on the deck and head for home." The surviving pilots shove their throttles to the firewall, diving back towards the relative safety of the waves, leaving the burning pyres of the two bombers own in the jungle, one in the sea behind them. The entire engagement, from Canning's first call of bogies to the bomber's destruction, has lasted less than 90 seconds. But now comes the long, anxious flight back to Guadalcanal. They are deep in enemy territory, low on fuel and scattered, and the vengeful Zeros are still in the sky. The sky over Bougainville falls silent. The surviving P-38s, now separated and vulnerable, streak for the horizon, their Allison engines screaming at maximum power. They are back on the deck, 50 feet above the water, a desperate high-speed retreat from the hornet's nest they have just kicked. Adrenaline still courses through their veins, a volatile cocktail of triumph and terror. They have done the impossible. They have killed the Admiral. But the cost is still being tallied. Lieutenant Rex Barber, his hands steady on the yoke, zigzags erratically, his eyes constantly checking his mirrors for the pursuing Zeros. His fuel gauges are dropping at an alarming rate. The long run home is a race against both the enemy and his own fuel supply. He looks for the other Lightnings, for the comforting presence of a friendly wingman. But he is alone. Each pilot is an island of anxiety, fighting his own private battle for survival. The radio, once a cacophony of combat, is now largely silent, punctuated only by Major Mitchell's terse commands to regroup. One by one, they begin to find each other, lone specks converging over the vast emptiness of the Solomon Sea. But as the formation slowly reassembles, a grim realization dawns. They are only 15. Lieutenant Raymond Hine is missing. No one saw him go down, but no one can raise him on the radio. He was last seen in a desperate tail chase with a Zero, a fatal dance from which he never returned. The elation of their victory is now irrevocably tainted by loss. Back at Henderson Field, the tension is unbearable. The scheduled return time comes and goes. The minutes tick by with agonizing slowness. Had the mission been a failure? A trap? Had they lost all 16 aircraft? Then a lookout spots the handful of silver specks, low on the horizon, growing larger. The first P-38s appear over the field, engines sputtering, running on fumes. Lieutenant Besby Holmes's Lightning is in the worst shape. He has over 180 bullet holes riddling his airframe. He has no brakes, no hydraulics, and only one engine. He makes a desperate, one-wheeled landing, skidding sideways down the coral runway in a shower of sparks and dirt before ground looping to a halt. He is safe. As the other pilots land, the ground crews are stunned by the state of the aircraft. They are battered, shot up, and almost completely out of fuel. The pilots themselves are utterly spent, their faces gaunt with exhaustion and stress. They stumble from their cockpits, dehydrated and trembling, the 2-hour flight home having drained them of their last reserves of strength. In the debriefing tent, the story comes out in a chaotic, adrenaline-fueled torrent. Both Tom Lanphier and Rex Barber vehemently claim to have shot down the lead bomber Yamamoto's plane. Their conflicting accounts, born in the heat and confusion of a 90-second melee, plant the seeds of a controversy that will last for decades. But one fact is undisputed: the primary target is down. Meanwhile, at the Japanese base in Rabaul, confusion gives way to dread. Admiral Yamamoto's flight is overdue. Then it is critically overdue. Radio silence is maintained, but a palpable sense of panic begins to grip the command staff. Search planes are dispatched along the flight path, their crews scanning the dense, unforgiving jungle of Bougainville. The next day, April 19th, a search party hacking its way through the jungle comes across a scene of utter devastation. The wreckage of a Betty bomber is strewn across a deep ravine. The bodies of the crew and passengers are scattered among the debris. Thrown clear of the main fuselage, still strapped into his seat, is the body of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. He is slumped forward, his gloved hand still gripping the hilt of his katana. He had been killed instantly, a single bullet wound visible. The architect of Pearl Harbor was dead. The news, when it is finally confirmed and sent back to Tokyo, is a seismic shock to the Japanese Empire. For the nation, it is a catastrophic blow to morale. For the American forces, it is the ultimate act of vengeance. May 21, 1943. Tokyo, Japan. The voice of the radio announcer is somber, heavy with a grief that settles over the listening nation like a shroud. For a full month, the Japanese government has kept the secret locked away, wrestling with the unthinkable truth. But the silence can no longer be maintained. The announcement is broadcast across the empire. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Fleet, national hero and strategic visionary, has met a gallant death in a warplane while directing strategy on the front line. The carefully chosen words do little to soften a blow that strikes at the very heart of the Japanese spirit. A wave of profound national mourning begins. Yamamoto is posthumously promoted to the rank of Admiral of the Fleet and awarded the Grand Order of the Chrysanthemum. His ashes are returned to Tokyo for a massive state funeral, a solemn spectacle of a nation grieving its fallen icon. But as the Japanese public mourned, a question burned within the halls of the Naval General Staff. How could the Americans have known? The timing was too precise, the location too remote for a chance encounter. The possibility of a compromised code was considered, but ultimately dismissed. Such a failure was deemed inconceivable. Instead, the High Command concluded that a network of coast watchers on the Solomon Islands must have spotted the flight and relayed its position, a theory that, while plausible, failed to account for the mission's pinpoint accuracy. The JN-25 code, the key that had unlocked Yamamoto's fate, remained in use, a catastrophic failure of Japanese counterintelligence. Back on Guadalcanal, the victors of Operation Vengeance were celebrated not with parades, but with secrecy. The pilots were immediately whisked away from the front lines, their success a secret too valuable to risk in further combat. They were sworn to utter silence. The official story released to the press was that a routine long-range patrol had stumbled upon Yamamoto's flight by pure chance. This cover story was paramount. Admiral Nimitz and his intelligence staff knew that revealing the truth would be a strategic blunder of epic proportions, sacrificing the priceless advantage of Station Hypo for a momentary propaganda victory. The codebreakers in the basement at Pearl Harbor continued their silent, vital work, their role in the assassination remaining one of the most closely guarded secrets of the war. The mission, however, transformed the reputation of the P-38 Lightning. The aircraft, once dismissed by some Axis pilots as an oddity, had now proven itself beyond any doubt. It had performed the longest and most complex fighter intercept mission of the war, a feat of navigation and endurance that no other Allied fighter could have accomplished. The fork-tailed Devil became a legend in the Pacific theater, a symbol of American technological reach and a fearsome predator capable of striking deep within enemy territory. Its twin booms, once a source of curiosity, were now an omen of death to the Japanese. For the men who flew the mission, the return to anonymity was jarring. They carried the weight of their secret, unable to share the true story of their incredible feat. The controversy between Tom Lanphier and Rex Barber simmered beneath the surface. Lanphier's immediate and confident claims upon landing had secured him the initial credit. But as the years passed and more evidence came to light, including Japanese accounts and a meticulous analysis of the crash site's location relative to the plane's flight paths, a consensus grew among historians and military analysts. The evidence overwhelmingly supported the account of Rex Barber, the quiet pilot who held his course, focused on the bomber, and delivered the killing blow that decapitated the Japanese naval command. Though the official credit would be shared, the debate would outlive the men themselves, a final, lingering echo of the chaos and confusion of those 90 seconds over the jungles of Bougainville. Operation Vengeance was a stunning success, a calculated act of assassination that shook an empire and altered the course of the war in the Pacific. It was a victory forged by the brilliance of codebreakers, the audacity of commanders, and the courage of 16 pilots flying a machine that was in the end anything but underestimated.